If I might, I would like to, at this time, call on Lance Forsythe, who, as the council knows, we invited this evening to discuss the jail budget. And I'm sorry, Lance, I don't know if you were, but anyway, if you'd like to come up, then welcome. I don't know if you have any specific thing you want to say prior questions, but.
Well, good evening, Mayor Adams and honorable members of the City Council. I am here today, I believe, to brief you on the FY13 proposed budget. I'll be reading some from the executive summary that was provided to our authority members, and of course interrupt with a question anywhere, anytime. The Southside Regional Jail proposed budget for fiscal year 2013 is $4,421,239. It's noteworthy that the proposed budget is $204,000 less than FY 2012. The proposed budget includes a reduction of aid to localities payment. That's the payment that we make back to the Commonwealth every year. This year, it's forecast to be in the neighborhood of $115,000. We also believe that the revenue from the compensation board will be further decreased in this year. The budget contains a request for $518,651 increase in per diem payments from the City of Emporia and Greensville County due to the anticipated loss of the jail bed contract with Brunswick County. That contract provided about $716,000 in revenue and has for each of the last 3 years, be ending on June 30th. The most significant increase in expenditures occurs in VRS, where our VRS payment will increase $49,000. Group Life, I know it's affecting the city as well, $19,000. Other increases include heating, and we have begun a new line item called Home Electronic Incarceration. That's a new line item that we hope to use to mitigate the cost of holding seriously ill inmates. The most significant decreases, in other words, where is the budget going down, are in professional health services, food-related equipment, electrical, and water and sewer. Two crucial line items will remain unknown until announced by the Compensation Board sometime in May: salary and jail per diem payments. This budget is balanced as written, and I'll be glad to take any questions you have, any questions about what I've just said, anything I can do.
Any questions, Lance?
Start. $518,651. How much more can we expect next year?
This year, the Finance Committee chose to use $200,000 from the reserve to cushion the blow. Unless another line item in the revenue side appears, I don't see any way around it being $200,000 higher next year. It was a stopgap measure that the Finance Committee took to soften the blow to the city and the county, or it would have been the whole $716,000 increase, sir.
And right now the split is based on the inmates. What is the split?
The split right in the last year it was 60-40. We use a 3-year average. The trends, the city is trending down at the moment. If we look at this, and I happen just by happenstance, Lieutenant Mike Strickland, our records chief, is in here. The last data he gave me, I believe, was 47% county and 53% city. And that's dropped from the 60-40 split that's been traditional for at least 7-8 years.
So the 47 and 53, and the additional revenue expense that the city will incur will be based on what percentage?
Next year it would be based on this year it would be based on the last 3 years, an average of the last 3 years.
Which is
60-40, almost on the nose at the last count.
So 60-40 for the 3 years and the 7 to 8 years? I thought I heard 7 to 8 years on 60-40.
For about 7 to 8 years, it has been 60-40. A percentage or a half a percentage one way or another. It's been remarkably consistent. It's only in this last year that's trended down for the city.
Okay, so cumulative, we're looking roughly at $720,000 with the loss of Brunswick.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
The budget of $4,421,000, how much of that goes to debt service?
$11 a day. We write a check every month for $44,000.
It's about $126,000 and some dollars.
For the year. What is the cost per day for an inmate if you were charging someone to come to
Our most
and what's the average across the state?
the contract with Brunswick that will be in effect till the 30th of June is $37 a day. They handle all transportation. They pay for their own medical costs. The average in 2010 for Southside Regional Jail, which is the most recent data, was $55.25 per day. The average for all local jails statewide was $99.79, and the average for regional jails in 2010 was $104.
Okay. What are we going to do, and what is the jail authority going to do to try to fill these gaps rather than we looking at every taxpaying citizen that we can take these meetings?
We have, in the past year, talked to both Sussex County, and there was some mention of Southampton County. Southampton County is actually a member of the Western Tidewater Regional Jail. The sheriff of Southampton County sits as a non-voting member on that jail authority. Sussex, we have gone so far as to involve financiers, I think I said that correctly, Davenport Company. We've extended a hand. We've offered that they could be a member, they could rent, they could sign a 20-year contract. This sometimes is a bone of contention with sheriffs. They want to hold on to their own jail. We had a very strong advocate there, Mr. Harris Parker, former chief magistrate for our area. He died recently, sadly. Right now, there is no fresh information from Sussex that would lead me to believe that they're making any decision. They have been approached by the Meharon, they've been approached by Riverside, and they've been approached by Southside to hold their inmates, to suggest they close their own jails.
What's the closest proximity to you?
We are the closest in terms of just, how many miles to drive here. We're also the lowest per diem.
And how much pressure are they getting from the state at this point to shut that jail down? Or are they continuing?
Again, the sheriff as a constitutional officer is immune to that type of pressure. There are no plans to, and control is always about purse strings, there are no plans to cut the per diem they're paid for holding those inmates or in any way attack their constitutional officers or their comp board positions. That's the only leverage that I would see, sir.
All right. There's one question that I have that I have been told different information than what you just quoted. Now, I could be wrong, but I got it from a council member in the city of Suffolk. And I was told by that council member that Southampton is not a member of that authority, although they do hold a position on the board. And that was within the last 7 days, I was told that. So my question is, with a new sheriff in Southampton County, I believe at the last election, a new sheriff was elected. It would be my suggestion, strong suggestion, that we coordinate as hard and heavy as we possibly can. This particular gentleman told me that he understands that they're being pushed on their jail. Now, I can't substantiate that. I'm going strictly by what that particular councilman told me.
Well, with that direction, I assure you I will be in Southampton County tomorrow. We are doing everything we can to not leave a stone unturned. So if in fact he's a member of the board, but they're not a member, is a fine point that I just was unaware of.
It doesn't make sense to me on that side of it unless they're trying to bring them in to get their investment to cut their costs as well, because they're having to put money into their authority as well, but not nearly the dollars that we're putting. Now, I realize it's a different authority and a different number of members, etc. When we cut down the Brunswick inmates, and we go from, and I don't know what the number is, but let's just say hypothetically there are 200 inmates today and we end up with 130. Is that close, ballpark?
That's close enough for discussion.
So we're taking away a third of the inmates per se. Is our jail set up in areas where certain parts can be shut down, or does the whole facility have to operate continually based on the way the design of the building?
Good question. The design of the jail's rated capacity with the Department of Corrections is 100 inmates. So the short answer is no. We've looked at could we pack the people into one side and close the other, which is an attractive idea. Unfortunately, we have 3 classifications of inmates: minimums, mediums, and maxes, and we can't mix those people without complications and liability. So if we take a minimum security inmate, put them in a medium security area, and that person's injured, then the jail would be liable. We also have to deal with females, and that kind of or makes the problem more difficult. But it was built to hold 100, and there's no way to open only half of it. We continue to look at it. If the numbers would dip to 130, today they were 146. So they've been holding steady between 145 and 150. They haven't been down to 130. So we are forecasting we'll lose 25% of our inmates, closer to that number than to 33.
Sure, I have some more. Anybody else have questions?
How much left is in the reserve that the jail authority has with you pulling out the amount to buy down the extra debt for next fiscal year?
We were going to move to a reserve of 15% of the operational budget. The short answer, Linda, I have to rely on you. We had $800,000. We took to roughly $600,000 remains in reserve.
How many more years are left on the debt service at the level that you
We
talked about?
refinanced recently to lower a payment. I think you're right. I think at least 10 years of debt service remains.
I think when I checked, what information I could check, it looked like 16 or 17.
We have a banker, so I think I'll take your.
I'm sorry. Other than Sussex, Southampton inmates, are there no state, federal, or other programs out there to lure into that facility?
We are working with Prince William County. They are doing a rehab of one of their buildings. We've held inmates for them in the past, but the competition for these inmates has become fierce. Whatever number you choose, someone else will go lower. We were told that the last proposal we made to Dinwiddie County, they had been told that whatever our proposal was, that there was another regional jail that was willing to go $1 lower. So this isn't a formal process. So if they all opened all the proposals on one day, it would be more straightforward. But any sheriff can sign in the way sheriff from Brunswick County signed a contract with us can sign, and they don't have to use a process that requires sealed bids and opening at a given time. So there's a lot of competition. At the federal level, those jails that were holding federal inmates in the past have all been fighting over those inmates. Other state inmates, most every other locality is in some way connected to a regional jail. Pittsylvania County was one of the last holdouts way out west, and they actually were in the General Assembly this year asking that the DOC hold some of their jail inmates because of the extra capacity that the DOC had. That failed, and now the Blue Ridge Regional Jail is holding those inmates. So I don't know of any, but Southampton tomorrow and anyone else that rolls in front of us, we're going to take a run at. We're going to try and bring those people here.
We've also tried to approach North Carolina.
The complication with North Carolina is anytime you hold out-of-state inmates, the compensation board takes back from you that portion of that per diem you are paid that they calculate as being what they call personnel recovery. And perhaps correctly, they say we pay a portion, or in their opinion, the majority of the salary of your officers. For many of the regional jails that are involved in that, you're paid a certain amount, and the state takes 28 of it back. And they take it back by not giving it to you in your per diem. So it's not that you write them a check. They just determine how much they are going to take, and they don't give you money that you feel like you're owed.
Lance, I guess the question that I stumble with is if we're that efficient and our rates are that much lower charging, and the average is so much higher, how can those averages be so high when they're competing and they're undercutting as far as they're undercutting?
Well, I think it's Mr. Thrower that points it out to me on a regular basis. Some of those numbers are North Virginia, so they blow that number up. When you go to the Piedmont Regional Jail, where on one single day recently they had 5 vans go out, because I just happened to be there for a meeting. They had 2 go to D.C. and they had 2 go to North Carolina. Those were all about federal inmates. So they're driving back and forth. They're churning a lot of dollars. Are they making a lot of money? They're coming to the slow conclusion that they're not, that wear and tear, liability, and vehicles is beginning to overcome whatever numbers of dollars they're being paid. My position has always been that anything in a bed is better than nothing. So that's why we've chased other localities ever since I can remember to try and fill those beds. But right now it has just gotten cutthroat. Please remember that regional jails, and the one in Meherrin is a good example, are built to a 14-year horizon. So they're built with excess capacity. When they come online, whatever date this year it actually happens, they're going to have several hundred empty beds. And they're going to take the same position that I do, I believe, and that is that anything in that bed is better than nothing in that bed, if you don't have to pay the medical costs, which is a different matter entirely. But those are some of the challenges. I hope I've answered the question.
Jim, just to highlight the regional jail that undercuts every time we or anybody else makes a proposal, that one jail, regional jail, does not have a debt. Okay. So that's the reason they're able to play cutthroat with you.
Our debt works out to $7 a day, I believe. I've got a document right here that will tell me exactly what it is. So the way the mayor said, we start out $7 behind the 8 ball in every transaction that we make. Our debt is, with $6.83 a day with a recent, this is 2010, that's the newest data that's available.
$6.83 per day.
Per day is the debt service per inmate. So 206 inmates times $6 per day. No, I don't. But, and I would like to bring anyone in who's seen the numbers, but when you look at the cost of that jail, and if we sign a check every month for $46,000, now this is layman, which is always dangerous, but I figure if we pay $46,000 a month on a $7 million debt, and they build an $80 million jail, what is their debt service going to be? I don't think they're going to be competitive. You don't want to be the tail of the dog. The people that were the head of the dog have been holding inmates for years and have driven their debt service down to zero by holding outside inmates when the need was there. But there are soon to be 24 regional jails statewide. The Meherrin's the last one coming on. Once they draw back in all of their inmates that are now being held by Dinwiddie, excuse me, by the Piedmont Regional Jail, by the Blue Ridge Regional Jail, by the Southside Regional Jail, and by the Riverside Regional Jail, they're still going to have several hundred empty beds. When they start out with a per diem that's twice hours in debt service, they would not be able to compete. What they have going for them is they have a block of 200 beds. Another challenge we have in dealing with the feds is we will have about 50 beds to offer. To them, that's a very small amount. Another challenge.
When this jail was built, how many jails were up here in the state, regional jails?
We were built very early on. I can only guess. There's been at least 5 I can think that have opened since our jail, and many of them have been expanded. The Blue Ridge is now in 6 separate satellite sites. Southwest, the largest one in the state now, is in 3 sites in the far southwest. Rockbridge, a number, but I can't give you the exact number.
Make a question out of this if you find something relevant. It's more of a comment than I guess a question to you. But I think it's certainly safe to say we did not voluntarily or out of any desire on the part of council build this jail. We were compelled by the state through the person of a circuit court judge to do so. And your predecessor, one of his many talents, was a daily briefing with lots of photographs explaining our progress to keep tempers from flaring to a point where things got even nastier than they were. And I don't know the status of this legislation. There was a bill in the General Assembly to preclude a circuit court judge from being able to do that at this point with localities. Of course, they can do that now. All the jails are built. The state's completely built out. At the time our jail here opened, there was a lot more need out of state for facilities than is the case now. Other states have built up their jail needs just as Virginia has. But you mentioned lack of pressure on Sussex, and they're apparently quite a hit on YouTube from some of their recent supervisors meetings. They make us look like pikers when we were having our difficult days on council. And I understand the sheriff advised them last Thursday to recess their meeting or be in danger of being held in violation of disorderly conduct charges, which would have been 6 more beds, and somebody's didn't happen. I think the most interesting question in any of this from what is our problem, and is going to be Brunswick's problem too, because there's no way this is going to be a good decision for them financially long term any more than it is a good circumstance for us. Why did the state let Brunswick County build that regional jail? And I think the answer is very simple. Emotions flared after the correctional center there was closed. Folks were screaming, do something, fix this, help us. And this was the state's response to that. So as a result, we get to pay now, and then a couple of years down the road, the Brunswick citizens get to pay again in a different way. You can respond to any of that if you want, but I mean, I think that's why and how we got to where we are.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It was the stupidity of the state in building another regional jail within 30 miles, 20 miles, 18 miles.
The frustrating part to me about that whole piece, and I think you're right, is that we are directed to work regionally together from the state of Virginia today. And this decision, there was nothing regional about it, in my opinion. I think it was all positive.
Yeah, well, absolutely. As you said, it was just a stupid move on behalf of the legislature, Department of Corrections, probably all the way to the top, as payback for closing the Brunswick facility.
And how can they all be regional jails if everybody has them?
Well, you know, as Jim said, regionalism has been the main topic out of the lips of state government for years. And as we well know, we attempted a water plant years ago, and we were taking a regional approach. Well, next thing we know, another locality within our reach had gotten approval for a water plant. They can preach all they want to about regionalism, but when it comes down to it, it's still politics, trying to make people happy. And the Brunswick facility closing, this is the Band-Aid that the state used to pay them back. And you're right, the debt service on Brunswick County